heck? Hey there, blokes. About a year and a half ago, you might have remembered me saying that I'd review every Valve game for the PlayStation 3. And, well, I didn't, but I did just get very politely reminded about Portal 2. So why not take a look at that instead? First, some history. Portal 2 was released in 2011 and was developed by Valve Software. The team previously worked on the first Portal, released in 2007, and a short game called Narbacular Drop that was released in 2005. Narbacular Drop was an end-of-the-school year project by a group of students at the DigiPen Institute of Technology. Narbacular Drop is also considered a spiritual predecessor to Portal, as it contains many of the Portal mechanics, but in different ways. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the game itself. In the ending of the first Portal, you see Chell, the character we play as, defeat GLaDOS and escape Aperture Science, only to have her unconscious body pulled back in. This game starts with Chell waking up from suspended animation to perform a routine physical and mental wellness check, which is a fun way of saying tutorial. I am then put back into suspended animation for over 9 days, and awakened by a personality core named Wheatley, who is played by Stephen Merchant, who you might know from the UK version of The Office. We get some fun hijinks when the game tells us to speak by pressing the jump button. Then Wheatley takes the room that I am in and pilots it until he puts a hole in a test chamber wall, and the puzzles begin. The first chambers in the game are all the first chambers from the first Portal, except grown over and falling apart with some small tweaks. It only takes 2 chest chambers until we get the portal gun, but it can only fire 1 portal and is always linked to a second one that the game provides. After doing a few more tests, we end up with Wheatley again, and he detaches himself from the rail. And I swear, no matter how hard I try to balance him on my face, I always drop him. When I pick him up, I then put him in a socket in the wall that appears, and he opens up the wall so I can progress. We walk through GLaDOS' chamber, and I see her destroyed body. We then end up in the breaker room, where Wheatley and I are trying to find a breaker that'll turn on an escape pod so he can escape. Yeah, I plug him into a socket in there, and he's turned on all of the breaker switches. He's then restarted power to the facility, and then GLaDOS wakes up, who is very not ecstatic to see me, crushes Wheatley, and then just chucks me into a pit. After one hefty drop, I land in the incinerator room and get the dual portal device. After a chat with GLaDOS, I'm introduced to the first new mechanic in this game, lasers. You use the portals to redirect lasers to power lifts and the sort. After this test, we got another new mechanic, the laser redirecting cube. It redirects the lasers. Another new mechanic is the aerial faith blade. They are just platforms that send you hurtling through the air. They're quite fun. The next chamber of interest is one that brings back the beloved companion cube. It is not really used to the full extent that it was in Portal 1, but it is fun, and this test has a broken emancipation grid. Then you can bring the cube with you to the elevator before GLaDOS remotely sizzles the cube and you get an achievement. After a while, we go to a test chamber with a broken aerial faith plate, and we see Wheatley again, who survived his crushing. Apparently a bird picked him up and put him back on his rail. After this encounter, we see Wheatley 2 more times and discuss his escape plans. The next new mechanic is sunlight bridges. These bridges are made out of pure sunlight that are pumped down from the surface. You can use portals to put the bridges anywhere you want. During the test, GLaDOS has been hinting that Chell might eventually get to see her parents again.
So I'll just give you a hint. It involves meeting 2 people you haven't seen in a long time.
But it turns out just to be a trick to get back at Chell.
Initiating surprise in 3, 2, 1. I made it all up. Surprise.
After I complete around 20 chambers, Wheatley breaks me out and we book it. GLaDOS, seeing me escape, offers me the one last chamber, and as an idiot who wants a Steam achievement, I accept, go in, get gassed, and die. After I reload, Wheatley and I escape to an elevator that takes us to the back of Aperture. This leads to GLaDOS not being able to do much, just turning off the lights and making me entirely reliant on Wheatley's flashlight for a bit. After a bit of mucking about with Wheatley and I reach the turret production line and make sure that GLaDOS is only producing crap turrets. We move into the office area, we can see a cool little Easter egg next to some potatoes, and then reach the neurotoxin production chamber. Okay guys, now I have to tell you, during this part of the game, there is a plot hole. As you can see in this chamber, whenever there's a moving surface, a portal cannot be on it, and you cannot put a portal on it. But in this part of the game, you can. After successfully destroying the neurotoxin generator, Wheatley and I are sucked into a tube that separates us, and I am whisked away to a trap that GLaDOS has set for me, and she unsuccessfully tries to kill me with crap turrets and neurotoxin. When she brings down the tube that is supposed to have the neurotoxin in it, it only has Wheatley, who when arriving, triggers a core transfer. I plug him into a socket, I press a button, and voila, Wheatley is in control of the facility. He calls down an escape elevator for me, but after only going about halfway up, he pulls me back down with some quite maniacal looks. GLaDOS then insults him and says that I've done all the work to put him here. That makes him mad. He does then the next logical step, puts her on a potato. Why wouldn't you? We then learn from GLaDOS that Wheatley was designed by the smartest people in the world as a moron that is completely stupid. He was one of the cores from the first portal that was attached to GLaDOS to dull her senses and make her more docile, only infuriating her and making her kill all the scientists. She calls him a moron. He then shoves her in the elevator with me and smashes us both down a pit. Thus begins the old Aperture section of the game, with Potato GLaDOS and I falling down a pit and landing in the ruins of old Aperture. Here we are introduced to who is one of the best characters Valve has ever written, Cave Johnson, the founder and CEO of Aperture Science, and is voiced by J.K. Simmons, famous for his role as J. Jonah Jameson in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Alright, I've been thinking. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade.
Yeah.
Make life take the lemons back.
Yeah.
Get mad!
Yeah.
I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these?
Yeah, take the lemons.
Demand to see life's manager.
Yeah.
Make life rue the day it thought it could give Cave Johnson lemons. Do you know who I am? I'm the man who's gonna burn your house down with the lemons.
Oh, I like this guy.
I'm gonna get my engineers to invent a combustible lemon that burns your house down.
We are also introduced to Caroline, his assistant. During this section, we get to find out a bit more about the backstory of Aperture from 1955, when it was a prestigious science company using athletes and war heroes as test subjects, to 1985, where it is on the verge of bankruptcy. They're using homeless people they find on the streets, and Cave Johnson just bought $7 million worth of moon rocks, crushed them up, ended up inhaling them, and is now dying from moon rock poisoning. During Old Aperture, we are introduced to gels. Each of these gels have a unique ability. Blue makes you bounce high, orange makes you run fast, and white allows you to portal onto whatever surface it is on. Now, whenever talking about white gels, I need to talk about this test chamber. Okay, so on PC, it's a mildly annoying test chamber, but the way I first played it, on this chonky boy, with this thing, well, a very simple way to put it is, it's a piece of... Okay, so besides that chamber, I actually really like the gels. They are, in my opinion, the best new mechanic in Portal 2. And Old Aperture is my favorite part of the game because of the gels, and the fact that we just get a bunch of new backstory on Aperture. It's also fun, because once I complete the first testing track at Old Aperture, I get to impale Potato GLaDOS on my portal gun.
I can't move, and unless you're planning to saw your own head off and wedge it into my old body, you're going to need me to replace him. We're at an impasse. So what do you say? You carry me up to him and put me back into my body, and I stop us from blowing up and let you go. Well, you stabbed me. What is wrong with you? Hold on. Do you have a multimeter? Never mind.
Also, after completing the first Old Aperture testing track, I find out that Wheatley is such a moron. He is destroying Aperture by neglecting its core functions, and the facility will explode if GLaDOS and I do not fix it. So GLaDOS and I make our way out of Old Aperture, but not before reading a poster and deciding to try and fry Wheatley's processing unit with a paradox. When Potato GLaDOS and I make it back up to the upper layer of Aperture, we see that Wheatley is trying his best to test with weird cubes with legs on them. GLaDOS informs us that the body that Wheatley is hooked up to is hardwired to have an itch for testing. GLaDOS and I go down to the test chamber and confront Wheatley, and GLaDOS tells Wheatley the paradox.
Just...
Hey, moron.
Oh. Hello?
Alright, paradox
can't go true. Yeah, that was easy. I'll be honest, I might have heard that one before though, sort of cheating.
And Wheatley, being a moron, doesn't understand that it is a paradox. So now, after a brief stint in one of Wheatley's own test chambers, GLaDOS and I are now test subjects in GLaDOS' old chambers. But now with Wheatley as Overlord instead of GLaDOS. The new mechanic introduced in this section of the game is funnels. I find it an okay addition to the game. While it can be quite boring, it does add some freshness to the endgame. I'm also obligated to say that during this part of the game, you can see Peabody from the co-op mode in one of the test chambers. While testing, Wheatley starts talking about how he has a big surprise that you're going to love to death. As you might have guessed, he's found the cooperative testing bots, and he's planning to kill me. Not before I escape and evade death several times, much to his dismay. Before I confront Wheatley, bombs are introduced. Just as in Portal 1, you are introduced to the rocket turret just before fighting GLaDOS. And then before I confront Wheatley, I find a bunch of corrupt cores that GLaDOS says she will bring to me during the fight so that I can put them on Wheatley, corrupting him and initiating a core transfer so that she can be put back in charge of Aperture. So after I plug in a potato into a socket and go up an elevator, I'm at the final boss fight against Wheatley. It's a pretty fun fight, relying on the bombs that you just learned about to incapacitate Wheatley and putting corrupted cores on him. It's almost the opposite of the fight from Portal 1, where you have to take off the cores and destroy them. So after I put 3 cores on Wheatley, he's fully corrupted enough so that I can initiate a core transfer. I go into the room with the button, and plot twist, he booby-trapped it. So it explodes and I'm flung away. While laying on the ground, the whole facility collapsing around me, I look up and through a hole in the roof, I see the moon. And since the moon is a portal-compatible surface, I shoot it with a portal gun, and Wheatley, Space Core, and I are sucked out too.
The one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!
But not before GLaDOS can pull me back in and I pass out. After I come to, I get a lore dump about how Cave Johnson's assistant Carolyn is actually GLaDOS, and she was forced to become a robot against her will. And because of that, she got a little bit cranky and just killed everyone with neurotoxin. So after that lore dump, she basically goes, "You are dangerous and mute, and I hate you. Go away." And sends me up an elevator where we transition to a pre-rendered cutscene of a pretty cool church choir and go to the surface with a companion cube. Then we get to see another boppin' song like in Portal 1. And it's done. That was the Portal 2 story mode. But it doesn't end there. Exclusive to the PC version of Portal 2, there's the Perpetual Testing Initiative, where you can create and share your own test chambers. I don't have much to say about the creation because I'm not very good at it, but people have made some really, really cool tests. And there's also a Steam workshop where people have modded the game, and you can download mods for it. My one real complaint about it all is the fact that you can't make your own recordings to act like you're GLaDOS overseeing the test chamber. Brand new in Portal 2 as well is the multiplayer mode called the Cooperative Testing Initiative, where you and a friend plays robots Atlas and Peabody, and solve tests. My friend Jack and I played some of it, and we thought it was pretty fun. And I might be wondering why the game is currently in split screen. That is because Jack does not own the game, and despite the fact we were playing it online over the internet, we had to use the Steam Remote Play feature, meaning he was streaming my game to his computer, meaning the only way we could play it together was using the split screen feature. Anyway, the co-op mode is a lot of fun, and I don't want to spoil any of the endings. So that's Portal 2, a game that I've gone on record saying is my favorite game of all time. I believe what really carries this game is its stories, environment, and characters. So anyway, if you want to take anything away from this review, Portal 2 good.